Hey everybody, it's Charles and welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be talking about the Criterion Collection and some of my picks for movies that I think should be added to it. Anyone who knows anything about Criterions know that the Criterion Collection tries to gather the best films from around the world, and I think that these movies are ones that deserve to be seen and preserved by them. Some people might not agree with the movies I recommend that be added to the collection, but I personally think that all these movies are great in their own way and deserve to be seen. Some of these movies are movies that didn't get the praise they deserved when they were initially released, and I think it's about time they got it. Before I start this whole recommendation list, I just want to say that Written on the Wind, which is already in the Criterion Collection, needs a Blu-ray because it only has a DVD and we deserve to get a Blu-ray version of that movie. So Criterion people, get on it. So without further ado, let's get into it. So my first recommendation would have to be 1997's Eve's Bayou from Casey Lemons. The movie is about the Baptiste family and the secrets and lies that they've kept over the years and the betrayals that they've endured. The movie stars Journey Smollett, Megan Good, Samuel L. Jackson, Lynn Whitfield, and Diane Carroll. The Criterion Collection has become under fire as of late because it's been pointed out that they barely have any movies directed by a black filmmaker. I feel like adding this movie into the collection would be a good step forwards to fixing the problem they have with not having that many black filmmakers' movies in the collection, because this movie is directed by a black woman, so it would start the ball rolling with them getting more movies from black filmmakers. Personally, I think the movie is pretty good. I really couldn't say much about it when I watched it initially, but what I can remember is that it was pretty gothic and it was pretty good, but my rating for it is like a 3.5 out of 5, but that's just because I had some questions, and yeah, but overall I think the movie's pretty good. Even famed movie critic Roger Ebert said that the movie was fantastic and that if the Academy Awards didn't nominate the film, then that means the Academy wasn't paying attention. And seeing as how the movie didn't get any nominations, clearly they weren't paying attention. Seriously, the movie has it all. Gothic setting, and it's like secrets and lies in a family. It was very juicy. Also, Journey Smollett is giving you a performance. One of the best child performances I've seen. The next movie I would like to add to the Criterion Collection would be 2006's For Your Consideration from Christopher Guest. This is a mockumentary style movie that's all about Oscar award season and how the buzz created around actors and movies themselves affects those people. The movie stars Catherine O'Hara, Eugene Levy, Parker Posey, Jennifer Coolidge, John Higgins, and Bob Balaban, just to name a few people in this movie. To be honest, this is the first Christopher Guest movie that really clicked with me, because I've seen a bunch of Christopher Guest movies, but none of them really clicked with me like this one did. It probably clicked with me the most out of all his movies I've seen because it has to do with award season, and I'm someone who really loves Oscar award season and award seasons for acting and all that stuff for television and film in general. The movie perfectly captures the absurdity and also the tragedy of people trying to get into the award season race. It was just perfect in my opinion. This is just a really good movie that was panned when it was initially released, and people who see it now see the brilliance of what Christopher Guest was trying to do. The Criterion Collection can use some more comedy, and this movie would be a great addition to their collection. The next movie I would like for them to add to the collection would be 1940's The Grapes of Wrath from John Ford. The movie is about a family who's lost their farm due to foreclosure, so they all decide to pack everything up and move to California so they can try to find work and, just make a new life for themselves. The movie stars Henry Fonda, Jane Darwell, John Carradine, and others. This movie addresses so many issues like trying to find work and housing and even capitalism to a degree. I don't know anyone who could watch this movie and not see the parallels that this movie has with our society today. The movie can be a bit depressing at times, but that's because you know what you're watching is something that's very real and something that is happening even today. John Ford already has 2 movies in the Criterion Collection with Stagecoach and My Darling Clementine, so I wouldn't find it so much a stretch that they could get this movie to be in the collection too. This movie doesn't depict America and the whole American dream in the best light, but it's showing you the reality that a lot of people here are actually facing. Moving on to the next movie that I think they should add to their collection, which would be 2009's I Killed Your Mother from Xavier Dolan. The best way to describe this movie would be a love-hate relationship between a mother and son and the ups and downs that they have. The movie stars Xavier Dolan, Anne Dorval, Francois, cannot pronounce his last name, and Suzanne Clement. I'm very unsure if it's pronounced Xavier or Xavier because he's French Canadian, so you never know how they pronounce the name. So for now, I'm just gonna call him Xavier until I get some more clarity on it. This was the first film that Xavier Dolan ever directed, and at the age of 19. 19 people! How many creatives do you think could write and direct and produce and costume design and star in their own movie and have it turn out actually great? And at such a young age? At the end of the day, this movie is just a really intimate one, and it really all hinges on the performances, which is okay because the performances in this movie are fantastic. There are a lot of times in this movie where I couldn't help but cry because I could really feel and relate to a lot of the things that Xavier Dolan's character was feeling and going through. The Criterion Collection has very few movies depicting LGBTQ people, but I feel like adding this movie to the collection would be great because this movie is such a personal one for Xavier because he draws a lot from his experiences with his own mother. I mean, Xavier Dolan makes a lot of movies about a mother and a son and their bad relationship, but you know what? Clearly the relationship he had with his mom left a huge impact on him if he's gonna keep making this same kind of movie with the same theme over and over and over again. I just think that the collection can always use some more diversity in the LGBTQ department, and I just think that this one would be a nice one to add. The next movie I would add to the collection would be 1987's Law of Desire from Pedro Almodovar. Basically, this movie is about this porn director and how he's broken up with his boyfriend, and then he gets a new lover who's psychotic. But you know, he's still keeping in touch with his ex-boyfriend, but then his new lover finds out, and you know, crazy stuff goes down. The movie stars Antonio Banderas, Carmen Mura, Miguel Molina, and I cannot pronounce the last guy's name, who is the other main character, but he's on the screen. This was one of the first Pedro Almodovar movies I ever saw behind Voltaire, and it really encapsulates everything that is a Pedro Almodovar film. The movie is bright, full of colors, very melodramatic, and has LGBTQ characters in prominent roles. I already pointed out when talking about I Killed My Mother that the collection can use some more LGBTQ stories, and yeah, this is another LGBTQ story, and it's a great one. Very fun, very sexy. The Criterion Collection already has 3 of Pedro Almodovar's movies in their collection, so it wouldn't be much of a stretch that they would add this title to their collection as well. Seriously, seeing a young and very attractive Antonio Banderas being a psycho, it's a yes. The next movie I would want to be added to the collection would be 2011's Margaret from Kenneth Lonergan. This movie is about a teenage girl who witnesses a bus accident which results in someone's death. She's caught in the aftermath where the question of was the accident intentional or not will affect the lives of many. The movie stars Anna Paquin, J. Cameron Smith, Mark Ruffalo, Matt Damon, and John Gallagher Jr. This movie really went through post-production hell as the studio and Kenneth Lonergan couldn't decide on a runtime, as Kenneth Lonergan's cut was like around 3 hours, but the studio was like, we do not want it to be that long. The studio had a lot of people try to edit the film, including Martin Scorsese, but you know, Kenneth Lonergan just would not budge with the runtime and what was shown in the movie, and because of that, this movie was shelved for so many years as all this behind-the-scenes drama occurred. I've seen Kenneth Lonergan's 3-hour cut of the movie, and sure, it was long, but you know what, I thought it was a very fascinating look at life post 9/11, and honestly, it was very emotional, very Kenneth Lonergan. There were so many emotions felt by people in this movie, and I could not help but cry while watching this movie because it was just so emotional, and as I just said, very Kenneth Lonergan. Kenneth Lonergan, yeah, when you see this guy's name anywhere, get ready to cry because he is masterclass in depression and making you cry writing. This movie was quietly released and then quickly forgotten, and I think that if this was added to the Criterion Collection, it would get the recognition and praise that it deserves. Seriously, Anna Paquin and J. Cameron Smith both deserved Oscar nominations for the devastating performances in this movie. The next movie that I think should be added to the collection would be 1980's Ordinary People from Robert Redford. The movie is about Beth, Calvin, and their son Conrad and how they're all processing the death of their other son. The movie stars Mary Tyler Moore, Donald Sutherland, Timothy Hutton, Judd Hirsch, and Elizabeth McGovern. This movie recently turned 40, and honestly, it affected me just as much as it did when I first watched it. This movie is quite famous for beating Raging Bull at the Oscars for Best Picture, and it also won at the Oscars for Best Director for Robert Redford. So because of those two wins, this movie got a lot of hate because people were really rallying behind Raging Bull for Best Picture and Best Director for Martin Scorsese. But to be honest, this movie really doesn't deserve the hate it gets. I personally think that Ordinary People is quite moving and very well directed, and overall just a very well put together movie that's just really gonna pull at your heartstrings. And I just think it's sad that people either have forgotten about this movie or just haven't seen it in general. Baby, this movie had 4 Oscar wins. It had Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, and Best Adapted Screenplay. Timothy Hutton's Oscar win for Best Supporting Actor is one that I think about a lot. Really, his performance in Ordinary People is one of the only male performances that won an Oscar that I think about constantly. Truly though, he is the lead of the movie, and if they put him in lead as he should have been, he probably had no chance against Robert De Niro. So I'm fine with the category fraud that went on. Seriously, the Oscars really said, oh, you're young? To support you go. This movie was released by Paramount, so I would think that the Paramount Presents line might want to release this, but there's been no word if they're going to release it through their line. So fingers crossed that maybe the Criterion people might be able to release this. This movie should be regarded more highly, and adding it to the collection really would, reinvigorate interest into it, and maybe a lot more people would love it. The next movie I would like to be added to the collection would be 2007's Waitress from Adrienne Shelly. The movie is about a pregnant waitress who falls in love with this newcomer to town, and through this love, she's like, okay, maybe this is my chance to find happiness. The movie stars Kerry Russell, Nathan Fillion, Cheryl Hines, Adrienne Shelly, and Jeremy Sisto. This is such a sweet movie about a woman trying to find happiness because she's very unhappy in her current situation, and I just feel like people don't talk about this movie enough. Sure, I know that there's a musical based on this movie, but I feel like people just don't talk about the movie in general enough. Adrienne Shelly wrote, directed, and starred in the movie, and I just feel like this would be a really great movie for the Criterion Collection to have because it's, first of all, such a sweet movie, and second of all, it's from a female filmmaker, so they can add another movie to their collection that was made by a woman. Also, adding this movie to the collection would be a nice way to honor Adrienne Shelly because after she finished post-production of this movie, she was tragically murdered. So I feel like this would be a nice way to honor Adrienne Shelly by putting her movie in this collection. When it comes to heartwarming movies about self-empowerment, this really is one of my favorite movies. The next movie I would add to the Criterion Collection would be 1993's What's Love Got to Do With It from Brian Gibson. The movie is basically a biopic of legendary singer Tina Turner and her rise to stardom with her abusive husband Ike Turner and how she found the courage to break free from that relationship. I'm really recommending this movie be added to the collection mainly because of Angela Bassett's amazing performance. Sure, Lawrence Fishburne gives a pretty great performance too, but Angela Bassett gives such an electric and powerful performance, and I just think that this performance should be preserved and shown and seen by a lot of people. I mean, the Criterion Collection has The Rose from Mark Rydell starring Bette Midler, and I've watched that movie and I'm like, I feel like this is only in the collection to showcase Bette Midler's amazing performance, so I feel like we should give that same treatment to What's Love Got to Do With It and Angela Bassett's performance. I honestly go back and forth all the time thinking that, yes, Holly Hunter deserved her win for The Piano, and then going back to the thought of, Angela Bassett was seriously robbed. It really wouldn't hurt if this movie was added to the collection because the Criterion Collection really could use more movies with black stories at the forefront. The last movie I would talk about today that I think should be added to the Criterion Collection should be 1972's What's Up, Doc? From Peter Bogdanovich. The movie stars Barbra Streisand, Ryan O'Neal, Madeline Kahn, and a bunch of other people. This is seriously one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I laugh at the same moments every single time, which is very hard because once you know the joke, it's always not as funny, but every time I watch this movie, it's still just as funny. Really, Barbra Streisand is basically playing Bugs Bunny, and all the chaos going around in this movie is just so fun to watch. This is one of Peter Bogdanovich's best movies. They already have The Last Picture Show in the collection, so why not this one? Once again, it must be said that the Criterion Collection could use some more comedies, and what better comedy than this movie? This movie is funnier than some of the comedies coming out today, which just shows how timeless and funny it is. Seriously, add it to the collection for Babs. Do it for Babs. And with that, we are done with this whole recommendation list of movies that I think should be on the Criterion Collection. I have a lot more movies that I think should be in the Criterion Collection, but I just want to talk about 10 for now. A lot of these movies that I talked about don't have a Blu-ray copy at all, so it would be very nice that if the Criterion Collection released them, that I could finally get my hands on Blu-ray copies of these movies. So with that said, please tell me below in the comments if you agree with the movies that I think should be in the Criterion Collection, or tell me some of the movies that you think should be in the Criterion Collection, because I'm always interested to see what people think should be added to the collection. Thanks again for coming and watching me talk about my movie junk and all that I always talk about. And you know, if you haven't liked or subscribed to me yet, you should, because I am coming with content weekly, baby. Okay, so until next time when I talk about whatever movie stuff I talk about, or you know, maybe it might be something else in the culture. We don't know. That will happen eventually. But you know, until then, I will see y'all in the next video. So, bye!